following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFangy coming to you with an extra special review. Normally on my channel I do collection haul videos announcing the most recent Transformers figures I've added to my collection, but most recently I've only added one new Transformers figure to my collection, so I figured I'd skip over the announcement video that I added this figure to my collection, just divulge right into the full-on review. And so I am proud to present to you my most recent Transformers purchase. This is the Walmart exclusive, at least it's a Walmart exclusive here in the United States. This is the Transformers Generations Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection Voyager Class Autobot Road Hauler. What a mouthful that was to say. So yes, this is one of only two Voyager Class figures to be released in the first wave of the Transformers Legacies, the Walmart exclusive Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection. And out of all the figures, Road Hauler was in my top three figures from the Velocitron collection that I wanted to get to it and add to my own collection. The other two, one I've already reviewed. The box is right there above my head, facing sideways. That's Deluxe Class Clampdown. The other figure is Leader Class Scourge from the Robots in Disguise series. I'm hoping to get to his review next. But yes, for now I decided to take a look at Road Hauler because I figured why not get his review out of the way. So, for those of you wondering who exactly this character is, there's a few videos out there explaining who he is, but long story short, Road Hauler is a character who appeared for about a few seconds in the very first episode of the original Transformers Generation 1 cartoon series, and instead of being known as Road Hauler, his name was simply Hauler, and he only appeared in vehicle mode. He appeared in one scene in which he was helping the Autobot characters of Ratchet and Cliffjumper rescue Autobot Hound, who had fallen off the side of a cliff and was stuck in his vehicle mode. And after that, Hauler never appeared in a Transformers cartoon series or in any episode of G1 after that ever since. Although, due to an animation error, there's one scene in the third season of the G1 cartoon where a construction crane and that looks like Hauler was seen in a season 3 screenshot. But anyways, so apparently, who exactly is Hauler? Well, basically, after his one episode appearance in the G1 cartoon, from what's been gathered, even though there's been nothing official, apparently one of the vehicles that Hasbro was going to release in the first year in 1984 of the G1 series from Takara Tomi's Diaclone Robots line was the construction crane vehicle, which was in the Diaclone line originally done in orange, and that was Hauler's appearance in his one-time appearance in the G1 cartoon series. And apparently, Hauler was the working name for the construction crane robot, and apparently Hasbro originally wanted to release it in 1984, but at the last second Hasbro decided that no, they weren't going to release the construction crane in 1984. They were going to wait until 1985, the year after, and instead of Hauler, his name ended up being Grapple. So, Hauler is a Transformers character who, as a result of Hasbro originally wanting to release the character of Autobot Grapple in the 1984 lineup of Transformers characters, he ended up appearing in one solitary scene of the first episode of G1, but then after that episode, production on that was finished, Hasbro told Sunbow Studios that they weren't going to use an Autobot crane after all, and that's why Hauler disappeared from existence. A lot of Transformers fans and collectors, for the first 19 years after Hauler appeared in 1984, or had no idea if he was going to ever be an officially recognized Transformers character, or if he was just going to be a one-time animation error from the pilot episode of Transformers Generation 1. But then in 2003, during the 20th anniversary of when Takara Tomy had released the Diaclone Robots line to the general public in Japan, and the Takara Tomy distributor, E-Hobby Shop, ended up releasing a repaint of the Generation 1 figure of Grapple in the same neon green paint job as the Constructicons, and they decided to add the word Road to Hauler's name, and he was known as ever since then as Road Hauler. I will be referring to him as Hauler throughout much of the review, since that's a single word name that he's referred to in the G1 cartoon by Cliffjumper. He's the character who spoke Hauler's voice. And in the background information on him, eHobby Shop said that Hauler used to be a member of the Constructicons, which is why he's the same neon green as the Decepticons who combine into Devastator. But then, and when the Constructicons were captured by Megatron and reprogrammed to be evil Decepticons, Hauler was the only Constructicon who escaped, and he joined the Autobots. And after arriving on Earth, and after he helped Ratchet and Cliffjumper rescue Hound, Optimus Prime sent Hauler out on a mission to collect energy resources for the Autobots, and Hauler was always exploring planet Earth for new sources of energy for the Autobots to use up, and that's why he never appeared again in the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon series. So because he only enjoyed a few second appearance in his vehicle mode and was only referred to and only appeared one solitary time, Hauler is what I like to call the first ever What Happened to Him Transformers character, where it was unclear for years why he appeared just briefly on one occasion and then he was never seen again. So yeah, that's a bit of background history on who Hauler is. There's a video explaining in slightly more detail who Hauler is on shout out to Chris McFeely. He does a video series on the Transformers called The Basics, and if you watch his video on Hauler, it's only 6 minutes long, and it's worth watching, and it explains a lot about who Hauler is and why, for me, he was one of the top 3 figures from the Velocitron Speedia 500 collection that I was anxious to add to my own Transformers collection. So, taking a close look at the box up here on the top flap, you've got Hauler in his vehicle mode of a construction crane. Here you have some artwork of him in his robot mode. It wraps around the side of the box. Like all the figures in the Legacy line, this is an open window packaging, so unfortunately someone can potentially reach in and steal Hauler's accessory pieces if they want to. It's not like it was as when I reviewed Clampdown, where his accessory pieces are kept in a paper bag egg on the inside of the box. All of Hauler's accessory pieces, it's kind of hard to see because it's really dark in there, but all of Hauler's accessory pieces are there on the inside of the box. There's the spray nozzle, his laser gun, and then of course his construction claw for the crane mode, and battle claw for robot mode. Coming around here to the back of the box, I got Hauler the same place I got Clampdown and my Leader Class Scourge figure, from eBay, because there's no Walmart stores where I live. Coming around here to the back of the box, apparently this individual copy of Hauler, the person who sold this to me on eBay, apparently this copy of Hauler was originally going to be released in Hong Kong, because there's a sticker here explaining that this was originally going to be released at a store in Hong Kong, so that's pretty interesting to see there. You got some product photos here on the back of the box. You got Hauler in his vehicle mode, out of a green construction crane. You got him in his robot mode. Hauler does have one retool part, or to distinguish him from Grapple. Some would argue that Hauler is also a repaint of Inferno, but because Hauler and Grapple transform into construction cranes and Inferno is a fire truck, Hauler's more a repaint of Grapple, but the one part on Hauler that's a new sculpted piece is his robot mode head. Unlike Grapple, Inferno, and the third version of this mold that was released, which was the Generation Selects Artfire figure, Hauler, who's the fourth version of this mold, he has a brand new head with an open mouth where he's screaming and yelling at something. I've joked that the reason why Hauler is screaming is because he's frustrated that it took Hasbro 38 years to release a figure of him. My apologies, I have my window open because it's been 90 degrees where I live. And despite the fact that we got rain this morning, it actually, instead of making the weather colder, it made it more humid. So I have my window open. I closed it because there's a lot of noise outside today. But focusing back here on Hauler, that head sculpt, that's unfortunately for a lot of collectors is one of the make it or break it deals with Hauler, because of his open mouth head sculpt instead of having a neutral expression the way Grapple and Inferno and even Artfire do. I personally don't mind it again, because I like to joke to myself that he's upset that it took Hasbro 38 years to release a figure of him. So he transforms back and forth in 18 steps, and this is something I don't know if anyone else has pointed this out on their reviews. Most of the reviews I've watched of Holler, collectors have just brushed over his packaging, but I can tell that this is one way you can tell that the product photos are now made with computers rather than actual cameras. One thing to note about, there's an error here on Holler's box, because I don't know if I'm looking at his accessory pieces from what I can see, and they're the exact same as the ones you already get with Grapple. But apparently, look at this right here. They recycled images from Grapple and I'm thinking also Inferno, because right here on this arm, it's shown that you can unplug the claw arm over the nozzle, the spray nozzle accessory piece, and you can't do that. So yeah, that is two images that have been spliced together. Why in the world they couldn't just edit out the claw arm, the nozzle, and make it look like it was just the claw that Holler's using in the official product photo for his robot mode, I honestly don't know. But yeah, that's a bit of false advertising right there on Hasbro and Takara Tomi's part, saying that you can use the spray nozzle and the claw on the same wrist at the exact same time. So I just wanted to point that out for those of you who hadn't noticed that yet. So now that we've looked at Holler out of his box, let's take him out and take a close look at him in his vehicle mode. Alright, and so here is Holler out of his box and transformed into his vehicle mode. He's a very nice construction crane, and I've always embraced the idea of Holler, despite appearing for just a few seconds in his vehicle mode in the pilot episode of G1. I've always viewed him as being a full-on established Transformers character for as obscure an appearance that he has had in the entire Transformers franchise. And that's one thing that a lot of Transformers fans and collectors have been quick to point out with the release of his legacy figure, is that it's because he's obscure and is a rarity amongst Transformers characters that is what Holler is famous for, and that's why he's enjoying a popularity boost with his new Legacy Voyager class action figure. But yeah, I am just thrilled to finally have a figure of Holler in my Transformers collection, debating if whether or not, after the review, if I'll take a photo of him standing beside the other original lineup of 18 Autobots who were released in 1984, who appeared in the pilot episode of the cartoon and started the cast of Transformers characters. But yeah, Holler, in my opinion, there were originally 18 Autobots who were in the Generation 1 line of action figures back in 1984 and who appeared in the first few episodes of the G1 cartoon. So in my opinion, Holler has earned the title of being the 19th Autobot to appear in the Transformers franchise. So yeah, nice quick look at his vehicle mode. These aren't the only parts where you can store his accessory pieces. He says there are other spots, but visually, in vehicle mode, these are the spots that I feel are the best for them. There is an official spot for the spray nozzle in crane mode. You put it here, and then it acts like an additional hydraulic lift on the side of the crane arm. And then it's up to you where you want to put the laser gun and the claw for Holler. And again, I feel these are the best spots for him. So, for a quick size comparison, here he is with Grapple. Now, I did touch on a moment ago that in his appearance in the G1 cartoon, Holler is in fact orange like Grapple is, and that's because, again, there's no official confirmation from Hasbro yet, but in the minds of Transformers fans and collectors, the Autobot crane who helped rescue Hound was in fact supposed to be Grapple, and that Holler was a working name for Grapple before Hasbro settled on his final name. And eHobby Shop also touched on that in Holler's bio, explaining that sometimes he likes to collect spare parts if he has a part that's worn out, and even if it's a different color than the color he's already has on him, he will replace it. And that's why in his cartoon appearance, Holler is orange just like Grapple is, but then action figures of him are neon green because he sometimes likes to replace worn out parts with brand new ones that are different colors. And so at some point after his ones screen appearance in G1, Holler went from being orange just like Grapple to being neon green because all the spare parts, all his orange parts wore out, and all the replacement parts that he collected for himself were neon green. Whether or not Holler will be utilized as a character and make a more prominent appearance in the Transformers franchise, someday is unclear at this point. Holler was one of the characters listed as being a character for the Transformers Hall of Fame a few years ago. I can't remember if it was 2019 or 2020 when Holler was one of the characters that Hasbro listed as being a nominee for entering the Transformers Hall of Fame. But as I said, I am just excited to finally have a figure of Grapple here in my collection. In crane mode, as far as gimmicks go, the main gimmick is just like an actual construction crane. Is the boom arm. You can rotate it clockwise and counterclockwise 360 degrees. The arm can be extended and lowered, if you will, and it can go up and down. There's quite a range of motion for it. That's partially due to when you transform the figure from crane mode to robot mode. But yeah, overall, I do enjoy how Holler came out, and despite his new head sculpt, which we will take a look at when we get to his robot mode in a moment, I do enjoy that we finally got a figure of him. One thing to note about Holler is that just like the Inferno and Artfire versions of this mold, he does have the shorter and more solidly built 5mm pegs here at the base of the crane arm that end up inside his robot mode feet. So they're less prone to breakage than Apple's were. Or Grapple has, for those of you who don't own Earthrise Grapple, he has longer 5mm pegs, and they're hollowed out on the inside, so they have been prone to breaking quite easily, and many collectors have found the 5mm pegs broken off on the bottom of Grapple's feet. So that's made Grapple the most fragile version of this mold to be released. So I'm really happy that Hasbro and Takara Tomy remembered all the breakage problems that were found with Grapple, and that they gave Holler the same shorter and stubbier, more solidly built 5mm pegs that were given to Inferno and Artfire. And speaking of Inferno and Artfire, I'll bring out Grapple as well. But for a size comparison, here is Holler next to all of his mold mates. Here is Earthrise Grapple. Here is Kingdom Inferno. And lastly, but definitely by no means least, here is Artfire, who was released in the Generation Selects line. So yeah, here are all four versions of this mold. As far as characters that historically in the past have been mold mates with G1 Grapple and Inferno, Holler and Artfire are the only ones that I'm aware of. So if any of you guys were wondering, is there any chance of Hasbro and Takara Tomy possibly using this mold a fifth time or even more times than that? I honestly have to say the only versions of this mold I can see being used once again would be the Shattered Glass versions of any four of these characters. As far as I know of, there have never been any Decepticon repaints or any other Autobot characters who've been released as exclusives that are mold mates with these four, or Transformers characters. Switching and itching Holler and Inferno around like this. These two guys were released at mass retail, and these two were released as exclusives. One aspect that does kind of make sense, because Inferno and Grapple are the two characters who appear in Transformers Generation 1, the American version of the G1 cartoon at least. I can't remember if Artfire made any cartoon appearances in the Japanese series, but Grapple and Inferno are the more famous characters, and Holler and Artfire are the more obscure and not so well known characters. So as far as popularity of Transformers characters go, it makes a little bit of sense that Holler and Artfire were released as exclusives while Inferno and Grapple were released at mass retail. But either way, you look at it, and I just think it's really nice seeing them all lined up here beside each other. And for those of you wondering, I do have an upgrade kit on Artfire, which is how his Target Master partner is sitting on the top front section of his ladder. But yeah, overall, I do think the neon green paint job, it does manage to make Holler not only distinctive from Grapple, but also Inferno and Artfire as well. Oh, and yes, I'm just overjoyed and thrilled to see all four of these guys sitting side by side with each other. So let's get down to take a look at Holler in his robot mode, and we will do one last size comparison and wrap up the review. Alright, and so here is Holler, or as he's now called, Road Holler. Holler transformed into his robot mode. Again, the only new sculpted part that he has to distinguish himself from Grapple. Bumped my camera, lower his arms just for now. Get a close-up of his head sculpt. That's the only part that's new. He has a new yelling or screaming open-mouthed face. Ace, I've already seen Transformers fans and collectors on some of the fan-based websites, on the blogs. They've done made jokes, created memes, and made all sorts of funny material relating to the fact that Holler has an open-mouthed yelling face on him. And for those of you wondering, the inside of it is hollowed out. There's no paint or anything. There's no inside to the inside of Holler's mouth. My camera's not really picking it up, but if you look inside right there, you can just barely see the unpainted neon green plastic from the swivel joint in the neck that allows you to spin the head left and right sideways. So because of that, at Holler you can joke has a green tongue, since that's where the peg is visibly noticeable at. But yeah, there's a close-up of Holler's face one more time. You can configure his weapons into several different areas. I have his weapons like this, where he's holding the laser gun with his right side hand, and I also flipped out his left side hand, and he's holding the claw and the nozzles sprayer air as almost like the hilt of an energy sword type weapon. You can use your imagination however you want it to be. You can also do the reverse of that and make it look like he's using a pickaxe to stab at something, or laser blast at something if you want. But yeah, it's all up to your imagination. The head itself can spin left and right, but like every other version of this mold, it's super stiff, so I'm not going to mess around with it too much. The shoulders can rotate forwards and backwards 360 degrees. They can go outwards this far at the shoulder, and there's a nice sculpted piece out there here to not make it look like the arm is just broken off the torso. There's a hinge that's connecting it to that, so that's really nice to see. Got a swivel joint in the bicep, so the arm can spin at the bicep 360 degrees both directions. Hinge joint at the elbow. The hands can move outward just a tiny bit, but that's just a free range motion of when you rotate them around when you transform or Holler back and forth between his two modes. To get a full 360 degrees out of the waist, you do have to move the crane arm out of the way so you can get the waist joint to rotate 360 degrees. You got universal jointed hips, so the legs can go outward that far. They can go forward that far. They can go backwards. If you lift the crane arm out of the way, they can go backwards this far. Our swivel joints in the hips, and even though they look like ratchet joints in the knees, the knee joints are in fact swivel joints, so that's a little discouraging to seeing that. You do have ankle rockers, so if you want to get Holler into a sprawl-legged pose, you can. And then, of course, the feet can go upward and downward at the toes, but that's mainly the joint when you transform the feet into the crane mode. But yes, for a Voyager class-sized figure, a decent amount of articulation. So if you don't have any of the previously released versions of this mold, you do end up getting a fairly decent-looking robot mode with Holler. Alright, and then to wrap up the review for some size comparisons in robot mode, here is Holler next to his mold mate, Earthrise Grapple, and they look pretty fantastic standing next to each other. Although I do like the fact that Grapple has the orange helmet and Holler has a black helmet to further distinguish them from each other. And again, Grapple has the more neutral face expression, while Holler has the open mouth screaming face. And then right up here, here's a size comparison of the 5mm pegs. As you can see, Holler has the shorter 5mm pegs that were used on Inferno and Artfire, because these much longer 5mm pegs used on Grapple break off at a moment's notice. So I am very careful and very wary every single time I transform Grapple, which is why I don't transform him that often. But I did for this review because I really wanted to see what Grapple and Holler look like standing next to each other. So setting Grapple over here for now. Now, just to bring out all the versions of this mold, here also is Voyager Class Inferno, who was released in the Kingdom line last year, and then also released last year in the Generation Selects line. Here is Artfire. So yes, here are all 4 versions of this mold. I really enjoy seeing them all here. I did configure their weapons in different places. Aces, so that's one thing I like to, if you want to diversify these 4, if you have all 4 of these figures and you want to diversify them, you can have the weapons stored in different orientations. I got Grapple holding his laser gun and the claw coming out of his wrist. Holler, of course, his laser gun's being held there, and he's holding this weapon in his other hand. Inferno is holding his laser gun in the left hand because the spray nozzle is attached to his right side wrist. And then with Artfire, I have the spray nozzle on his left side wrist, and his laser gun's attached there on the side of his arm, so he can hold his Target Master partner with his right hand. But yeah, overall, I do not regret getting this guy. So for the proverbial question, do I recommend getting Transformers Legacy Velocitron on Voyager Class Road Hauler and adding it to your collection? Absolutely, I do. I do highly recommend you get Road Hauler. Even if you don't have the other versions of this mold, Hauler is still a pretty impressive looking Transformers character in his own right. And of course, as I said, he appears in the first episode of Transformers G1 for a brief moment, then he disappears, never to be seen again after that. So Hauler I've always viewed as being one of the members of the ARC crew that crash landed and reactivated on Earth in 1984. Because there were 18 established Autobots, Hauler, in my opinion, holds the title of being the 19th Autobot to be created for the Transformers franchise. I love the fact that he's now officially recognized and distinct character from Grapple. And I do enjoy the background story eHobby Shop gave for him, where he's a former Constructicon who never became a Decepticon, and he became an Autobot. So I love that he has a neon green paint job to further distinguish himself, not only from Grapple, but Inferno and Artfire as well. So thank you guys all so much. This has been the TFangy. This is my review of Transformers Legacy Velocitron Voyager Class Road Hauler. I highly recommend you get this figure if you can. And until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and until next time, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.